This is Season 4, Episode 40 of In Touch with Terri, a podcast for aesthetics professionals. This episode is titled, Becoming the Leader of Your Company Culture.
I think everybody should know that leaders are not born, they're developed. You cultivate them. And every one of my team members are on a track of their leadership, of improving their leadership. I share with them ongoingly things that move me in the ways of leading, and I train them and teach them how to be a good leader, how to be more effective, and how they build up versus tear down in their communication, and basically work on their emotional intelligence. Because as the CEO, as the owner, as the head honcho, whatever you want to call it, my job is to be the culture keeper. If you sense that something is off, it's off. Don't be afraid to have conversations. We call it a carefrontation instead of a confrontation. I don't see anything ever as a confrontation. I just see us trying to work to better our relationship with.
Hello, and welcome to In Touch with Terri, our power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetic industry that brings you expertise, authenticity, more importantly, solutions that have proven to increase profitability, attract and convert and retain more patients, and feature some of the top industry experts as guests. Hi, I'm Terri Ross, former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, and founder and CEO of Apex by Terri Ross and Terri Ross Consulting. Hey guys, on today's episode, I am talking about something that has come up this entire year, something that we know is so important, but candidly, after speaking at every society this year, with the surveys that have come out with the aesthetic industry, with the medical spa show and the plastic surgery society, three things became very apparent that the industry needs and wants. It was leadership, it was culture, and it was training. And I know, which is why we developed Apex, to fill a gap in the market. But I am joined today by an entrepreneur, a friend, and a longtime client, Dr. Yolanda Mangrum. Dr. Mangrum, thank you so much for being here with me. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be part of your show. I listen to all the podcasts and all of the guests have been fantastic. I highly encourage you to go back and listen to all these podcasts. You guys have done a great job with them.
Thank you so much. Well, I had asked Dr. Mangrum to be here with me for a couple of reasons. Her and I met, oh my God, when? Almost, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
We met 2 years ago at the medical spa show. She has a thriving dental practice, multi-specialty practice up in Sonoma in Petaluma. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Mangrum, ourselves and our team this past, over a year, as she built Illume, her new medical spa, which we are so proud of, and we'll talk more about that. But I was really moved and touched by what I saw. So Robbie Grayson and I went to train Dr. Mangrum's practice. And I knew that she was part of Fortune Management, this executive coaching program. I didn't know much about it. We're going to get into that. And so really stay tuned, you guys. You're really not going to want to miss this. But when we went up there to train her practice, there were a couple things that pretty much brought me to tears. I was astounded by how she led the meeting, how she was enthusiastic with her team, how she set expectations, how people were up out of their seats because she asked them to, jumping around, getting comfortable, stretching, and really committing to why we were there to have that meeting and committing to this thriving culture that she has built. I've honestly seen nothing like it. People that have been there for 25 plus years. And so we went to dinner and we talked a lot about what she was able to establish and why. And I wanted to bring her here with us today and from my tribe and my community, because this is something, even me personally, that we all can work toward, work on, and thrive to have a culture of success. So, oh my God, Dr. Mangrum, your pedigree is impeccable. So, I could go on and on, but I would rather the audience and my tribe hear from you. Tell us, when did you start your dental practice? Tell us about you and this journey that you've been on.
I had started dental practice in 1999. And basically by 2000, I was already a member and being coached by Fortune Management. And I sought out Fortune after dozens and dozens of consulting companies. But the reason I sought them out was because of the background I had had with a super camp. It was a personal development at 19 I was able to go through. And so I already had a sense of what personal development and supporting your communication and flexibility and your leadership and all of that and what that does to support success. And so I was seeking out this same kind of thing, and I found Fortune. And turns out I have been a client since 1999 with Fortune Management. And in about 8 years ago, I became a coach. So I started taking it to the next level. And I'm sure, as you know, once you start teaching something, you learn it totally inside and out. And so I think that I walk it, I talk it. It's like part of my life. And what we focus on is extraordinary practice, extraordinary life. From the beginning, my coach, Bernie Stoltz, asked me the question, what do you want in life? And I knew at that point, this was a totally different story. This consultant, this what I called consultant, we now call coach, was asking me, what do I want in life? And then he said, that's how we'll shape your practice. And so over the years, there's been different things. I wanted different things because I had a family and I wanted to be able to breastfeed and I wanted to be able to do different things. So we shaped the practice, step by step by step to meet life first. We work to live instead of live to work, so it's been the process is to always plan out, what I want to learn in the year and what kind of different things we're going to be able to bring to it. And part of that comes back to this idea of also bringing that same kind of success and leadership all the way throughout the practice. And I know that you also very much work with this, which is to have everything be an open book and as far as being aware of it in business systems. But I think the unique thing that Fortune brings to the table is the culture element, the leadership element, the communication, and mostly supporting a level of abundance and sharing knowledge to support the team members to be able to go after their excellence and be their excellent selves.
I love that so much. And I want to kind of repeat back what you said, because I know we all strive so much for this. And you said it's really, work, right? We're working to live and we want to have a better quality of life. And having consulted for so many practices for so many years, one of the things that I think tends to happen is we're always looking for that shiny external object, the next marketing campaign, the next website company, the next paid ads, whatever it is, right? And sometimes the best success is just getting back to the basics. But as it relates to culture, you can imagine, as you know, like the turnover in the medical aesthetic industry is very, very high. And we have no choice but to do some self-introspection and take a look and say, okay, what is it perhaps that as the leader, as the owner, as the provider that you're doing or could be doing so that there is that level of commitment. This is what I say, people that not just there for a job, right? Checking in and checking out, but leveling up to be that high contributor in the organization. And I think that, if more people can adopt some of your best practices, which we're going to get into, guys, we're going to learn what those are, the better and the more successful everyone's going to be. But before we get into the questions, I want to just sort of set the expectations of a little bit about Dr. Mangrum's background. So you've started your dental practice about 22 years ago, and then 10 years later, you purchased your second practice, Petaluma Dental Group, which is really this multi-specialty approach where you have several different specialties all in one. Explain a little bit more about that and why you wanted that methodology for the practice.
So 10 years ago, I sought out to have a more collaborative, all specialty practice. And actually, about a year into it, I realized I needed to become very focused on that. So I sold the Sonoma office and put everything focused in on the Petaluma office, with the intention of adding medical to the practice from the beginning. I purchased a large 11,000 square foot building and started calling it the Wellness Campus. The first thing we did was we put a community garden in the front, and that became the starting point to talk about wellness, nutrition, and being preventative. And with that prevention, I really was very interested. And when I met you, all the pieces fell together for us to open the med spa.
Which is super exciting. Okay, so Illum, we just launched, right?
Yes.
I mean, it was so exciting. So congratulations, because, for anybody listening, you guys there's so many people wanting to branch off into this space. Just before we get into it, just tell us how this experience has been, bringing the correlation of wellness and, everything that you believe in under one umbrella, but what it actually really takes to open a medical spa.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I know, and as you can tell from my history, I believe in finding the information out ahead of time, finding experts to help me. And so from the beginning, I sought after you, after looking at many consultants, and to see who would know the information to be able to put that into play. And so having really been impressed, and I explained that to my dental team when I introduced you to my team, the why I picked you, but I picked you because I knew that you had the knowledge, the experience, and you also had the culture that resonated with me. You had the heart, and you really do put things together. So we spent the last year really going through the, search for the medical directors and getting the team together, figuring out, getting everything into Apex and getting all the information into Simplast and learning about different product lines, and really kind of distilling down to make it the simple essence of where we're going to start and try to really define our niche and figure out where we're going to be focused on. So we focused on beauty inside and out. And with that, we have launched a wellness and beauty program at our office, which is a really great way to announce that to our dental patients, because it's a good carryover. And right now, we literally can do IMs and IVs in the dental chair during the process, the same time that they're having dental treatment. So we can work on boosting their immune system and supporting them, and also taking them to higher levels of their own longevity. And it's really, really exciting.
Well, I love it. And it's so gorgeous. It looks so beautiful. And you guys have just worked your tail feathers off. So thank you so much for choosing us to work with. I am equally honored and so humbled that we can help. I am super excited to read this book myself. I think she's actually in her second edition. But in 2014, Dr. Mangrum co-authored Hire to Inspire. Hire to Inspire. I want that to resonate with you. And what great leaders do to consistently achieve winning results. And you guys, I know there's a lot of books out there and books on tapes and all podcasts and all these things we can listen to, but it is no good if we are not truly at the level of believability that Dr. Mangrum is. And when she said it, like, I want to actually read this to my team, and I want them to do and believe and feel and faith and all the positive things that come with this, not just somebody there who doesn't want to be there. And so I think we can all learn from this book. And so now she no longer has employees. What she does have is partners and stakeholders who are invested in the totality of the success of the practice. And so, Dr. Mangrum, tell us a little bit about this book. I know you're in your second iteration, a little bit about the why you wrote it and how this has helped you build this culture today.
Well, I think any business owner can have their frustrations with employees. No one really wants to be managed, and no one really wants to be an employee. People want to have purpose. They want to come from a place of purpose. They want to be part of things. They want to have a belief system that matches what they're doing. And they want to have, we use the word Ikikai. And Ikikai is an amazing word that is actually on our introduction. Every time I have an interview, I bring out the word Ikikai and I explain what that means. And it's when you find your place in the world where it's your mission, it's your passion, it's your vocation, it's what you can be paid for, and you're all in harmony with that, you're in your Ikikai. And so I say to them, anytime I'm going to be hiring someone, I say, I only want to be surrounded by happy people. So the moment that you're not happy, let's work on it, or let's help you find your happy place, which means I'll help you find work somewhere else. But let's not stay here. Let's not quit doing this and stay around, because that's the worst thing you can ever have is an employee that's quit but doesn't leave. And so the second thing is that I only work with partners. So when we have to have conversations that's kind of corrective, and that you're acting like an employee versus acting like a partner, then this is when we'll be sitting down and having these conversations, because we are in our practice leaders leading leaders. So you'll have things that you are accountable for and things that we're counting on you for. And you need to be able to take care of those. And as our partner, we're going to follow you and we're going to do what you say because we know that you're in charge of this. So no matter what they're in charge of, we want to make sure that their needs are being fulfilled as well. It all kind of goes together in that happiness. In Fortune, we talk about people needing significance. They're all seeking out a significance. They're seeking connection. And when you fulfill an employee or, quote, a partner with all their levels of human needs, which is variety and significance and all of these different things, then they don't ever leave. They look for their next thing to be the next thing in your company. They're growing your company. And so they're finding fulfillment, and we don't need to keep searching for it. We have probably 80 to 90% of our team members have been there more than 5 years. And most of those have been here more than 10 years. And the reason that that happens is they continue to keep growing so they don't feel stagnant. They continue to get opportunities, and that keeps them around. It is more than a paycheck. And if we get to the place where we're actually at a crossroad just because of the money, then there's something not there, because you can't keep going to it about money. It's really, what is the value you're bringing to this and how much value are you ready to provide? And it can't be just about the money ever.
I love that thing about significance. So I want to back up as it relates to what you're talking about, because we can't really instill this culture and these expectations and this motto if we're not even clear with our onboarding process. And right. I know that, we're adding this operations piece to Apex because it's another big thing other than sales and other than finance. That third piece, this trifecta that really makes a business successful and sustainable and profitable. Walk us through your onboarding process so that you understand what their Ikikai is. And by the way, does that stand for anything?
Yes,
it's the letter stand for anything.
So Ikikai is a Japanese term that means your reason for being.
Oh, I love it.
Like, what is your purpose in this world? What's your reason for existing? So yeah,
I am going to steal that. Ikikai. Well, I know we're going to be talking about this for Apex and Terri Ross Consulting because I'm completely enamored. And I think anybody, running a business, you guys should adopt this Ikikai. I'm down with it. But okay, back to the onboarding process. What does that look like for you?
So the onboarding process starts with definitely a buy-in on those two questions that I'm talking about. You're going to show up and be happy, and you're going to choose happy. And if you walk around our office, I have probably 30 different things that talk about happiness being a choice and showing up and being happy. We all have things that happen in the world and in our lives. And, many of my team members actually say, you know what, this is a release. It's a release that I can come back. I can play full out here in the office, and then I can go home and then be energized to be able to take on the problems and issues that I have going on at this time. Because, we're all going to have things that come up in our lives. But we can't be bringing those things to work. We have to come in a level of service and a level of ready to go to be there for, and in Fortune, we have an order. It's patient, team, self. Mm-hmm. So when we're always in patient, team, self, then that can be our compass. It can be our integrity of where we need to lie. Am I coming for the patient first, or is this all about what I want? So it keeps our perspective there. But as far as the onboarding process, I have a culture handbook. And literally, I bring out the culture handbook. We go over the vision that we have for the office. We go over our purpose. We go over our focus. We go over all of the team agreements. Oh, you're going to love this one, Terri. So behaviors, and we call it our being versus doing. And so to understand the rules of operation, the operations of being part of our group, about being part of our team, is that we make some agreements from the beginning about our behavior and how we're going to be while we show up. And those are commitments that we continue to bring up and we go over. And when someone's onboarding, I like to bring out those agreements and explain to them that this is how we operate. Are those things that you can agree to? Are those things that resonate with you? Do you have some kind of reason that you wouldn't be able to uphold these? And these are things like, getting out on time, working towards showing up and having direct communication, no gossiping. I explained that in the beginning about gossiping and how we take our conversations, because we will have upsets, things will come up, but we use our communication tools, which is in the Culture Handbook, and it explains to people how to communicate. Believe it or not, we were never told how to have really healthy relationships and have meaningful relationships with people. So we explain how all levels of communication is either a loving response or a cry for help. And when you can filter that through in your upset and understand that the most important communication you're ever going to have is with yourself. And so when you're communicating to someone, so I explain how this works. So you're going to come into a totally probably unique environment that you've never had, but these tools are going to be able to be relatable to your home. They're going to be able to help you to have more meaningful relationships at home as well. And so you're going to get to practice them while you're here in the office. And the other thing is I explain to them that it's okay to fail. It's not okay to sit and watch something break down in front of you and not do something. But you'll never, ever be basically in trouble with me if you just act and do your best at the moment with the best knowledge that you have and you go forward. And if you do not do it exactly the way I'd like, I will come to you, we will have a conversation, and I'll explain to you, instead of saying giving away that crown for free, why don't we try to do something a little different? So ultimately, I think that it's important to have those kind of communications ahead of time so that they can understand exactly how they're supposed to behave. And I believe in Fortune, we have certain beliefs that we go through and we explain to the team members these over many different training sessions, which is, beliefs about people and how they show up and what their intentions are. We can question someone's behavior, but we never question intentions, because then that goes to their ethics and who they are. And we'd never want to rip someone down so far as to not help them to build up. We say build up or tear down. What's the purpose of your communication? So these things kind of get gone through, and I typically try to do these on the first day, but certainly within the first week of hiring, because I don't want them to, misstep or not really understand our culture and go, what's going on here? This doesn't, I don't understand how to behave here. So, we go through that, and we also go through a job description with them to explain what results they are expected to have. It's not a to-do list. It's an expectation of an outcome. So whenever we have projects, it's the outcome that we focus on, and how they get there is part of their leadership and their leadership training. So I don't micro lead them or micromanage them. I expect my team to come and think and behave in a way that supports us all.
Oh my God, I wrote down, look I have a whole book of notes right here because I love everything that you said. And I hope you guys really love it as well. And we'll kind of just take a pause for a second and look at your own internal culture and look at how your practice is and look at what you want differently for the next half of this year and moving into 2022. But I really love that you talked about this culture handbook and that you go through the vision and the mission and the focus and the purpose, and that you get a buy-in. And I think that with any good leader leading teams, again, when you're working at Fortune 500, you don't get to have these jobs if you don't have the ability to lead. And I want to take this a little bit further because, it's one thing to be able to do that. And it's another in what we often hear. And I get it. Look, I was reading this thing the other day talking about, we all think that we're so busy, right? And I'm sure that we are. But are we as efficient as we could? Right? Could we do things better? Is there more time to do these things, such as, which is my next question? You're a doctor. You see patients all day long. You're busy. You could check out, have your manager do it, which is a level of responsibility that they should be doing as well. But I was with you and I saw how you interact with your team and you make time.
Mm-hmm.
Good leaders have to make time. Otherwise, you did all this great work that you just explained. And then what? So what can you share about the importance of, number one, onboarding with this level of detail and expectation and buy-in so that you're not making bad hiring decisions and you get people that, again, can lead and be solutions oriented. I love what you said, build them up or tear them down. Like, how do we make these employees successful? But then how do you further that with your team meetings? Again, you had everybody do all this motivational stuff and they were just happy to do it. I mean, I was jumping around too, for God's sake. I was motivated. How do you take that further and then continue that execution of culture, whether it's morning huddles or meetings? And what are your expectations of those so that you can keep a pulse on this culture you're trying to instill?
So first off, I think everybody should know that leaders are not born, they're developed. You cultivate them. And every one of my team members are on a track of their leadership, of improving their leadership. I share with them ongoingly things that move me in the ways of leading. And I train them and teach them how to be a good leader, how to be more effective, and how to get more people to support them in their projects, and how they build up versus tear down in their communication, how they work on getting it right versus being right, and basically work on their emotional intelligence. Because as the CEO, as the owner, as the head honcho, whatever you want to call it, my job is to be the culture keeper. Mm-hmm. And the second that I feel that something is not awry, or that there's an upset that's not being addressed, the quote elephant in the room, I'm on it immediately because I don't want this to unspin. And one of the things that everyone should know is maintaining a culture is constant work, meaning like we're all going through many different things during our lives, and those translate back into being belief systems and processes that take us into places where maybe we're not being our best selves. So challenging everyone to show up and be their best self every day. It does take a little pep in the step. It does take a little bit of energy. It needs to say, bring it and be your best self. And great coaches, talking about even sports teams, they can see the best in that person. They see them already evolved. And that's what I do with them. And if I feel like someone needs a little pep talk, I go to them and I tell them, this is what I see in you, and this is what I can see you develop. And having someone that believes in them and that they know they can trust to fail and to know that I'll be right there to, support them back up is part of that culture. But I think that the main thing is to always maintain a level of emotional intelligence and to be really keyed into the different emotions that are going on in the workplace at all times. If you sense that something is off, it's off. I mean, check your gut. And basically don't be afraid to have conversations. We call it a carefrontation instead of a confrontation. I don't see anything ever as a confrontation. I just see us trying to work to better our relationship with, open dialogue.
God, I love that. She said, how did you say it? Carefrontation?
Yes, carefrontation.
When we talk about communication, share with us a time or an experience where you've really had to coach somebody into this carefrontation and the shift versus it coming out maybe like a negative effect versus something positive, and how that's helped the organization.
Well, every day, I think that the big upsets of whether it's a patient or it's a team member, those land with me. And those are things that I, quote, need to go clean up. And I'm not going to say that my gut doesn't tighten a little bit at times, but what I go through is a process called a reality check. And we have a team in Fortune. Our reality check is the communication that we're going to have with ourselves. and what kind of meanings are we going to have? What are the things that we're going to learn from this, and what the purposeful outcome we want with that communication. And that happens before we start the communication. And so, I've had many upsets, I think, that I've dealt with different patients. And when you go into an upset, I think if you're coming from a mindset of I'm about to learn something versus I'm about to defend myself, it changes everything. So if you go in to learn and you go into this communication to say, and our quality request is our other form of communication, which is I need your help. And when you start a conversation that's more of a confrontation where I need your help, then people don't come in with this cry back at you. It's not a cry back and forth, and who can get louder. It's really an understanding, coming to a place where we can understand each other. And I think if there's just even not knowing these tools, if there's something I can tell the viewers right away, is if you can just first ask yourself, what is it that I need to feel right in this communication, and recognize that there's two sides to this. And I don't have all the information. I never have all the information. When I go in to communicate with someone, I am going to learn something. And so if you start the communication from that platform, and then you go into the communication with listening more than you're talking, and you're learning, and you're going to learn something about how to make that relationship better, and you have certain beliefs, then the communication will turn completely around. And it won't be a hard conversation to have. So there's many times I've just had, like, for instance, I remember this one patient specifically who literally just dumped on me. I call it verbal vomit, just like, whoa. And, I sat there and she did question my intentions. Okay. She questioned who I was as a person. And I needed to sit there, and I did. And I sat there and I looked at her, and I realized she's just crying for help. So you have someone in front of you. Yes, they're hurting you by saying these words, but someone in front of you, and she's crying for help. Now, I may not be her dentist. I may not need to be her dentist. It may need that she needs to go somewhere else. But this person is in front of you, and they're crying for your help. And really, they took the time to come down in person to have a conversation with you. And so what if my belief around this conversation is that you really want to help me to be better? You want to help me to grow. And it's not, you don't know everything about me. Of course. That's how come you're coming to these conclusions. But your belief that, is that you want to come down and help me. Yeah. She may have not put that intentions together, but my belief sitting there, listening to her, taking this conversation in and evaluating it and replying back to her came from a totally different belief system, was that she's going to teach me something. I'm going to become better after having had this conversation. And in the end, we may decide to go our separate ways. But at the very end, I'm going to show my integrity. I'm going to show my strength, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to possibly learn something. Something is going to come up. And sure enough, I sat there, and it wasn't a pleasant sit there conversation. And in the end, she looked at me and she was like, I don't know where or what you have been trained in, but I fully expected you to take me and kick me out of the building, walk me to the door, and tell me you never wanted to see me again. And she says, I realized in the middle of talking to you that this isn't even about you. It's about something in my life. And she burst into tears. And she says, because you sat there and you listened to me, she says, I realized my real upset has nothing to do with any of this. And she went into some family thing that was going on with her. And she was just like, and wow. And so I shared with her, and I tore off some sheets about communication. And I said, here, I hope that these things help you at home. And it became a very powerful moment for her in her life to realize that this cry for help wasn't met with another cry for help. It was met with a loving response.
Yeah.
So by sending back love, in a sense, by just listening to her, I mean, not agreeing necessarily with what she was saying and certainly how she was tearing me apart. And it really did change probably how she's interacting with her family and the relationship she's having with her family right now.
Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story. It really resonated with me. And I'm really loving what you're talking about when you talk about the word upset. And I heard you say that a couple times during the training when we were there, and how every conversation is going into the outcome of that. I love that so much. And again, coming at it with love. So this was just an abundance for, conversation to have this with you. And I hope that the listeners find equal value. And there's so much more to come in terms of leadership and culture and what we can do. So Dr. Mangrum, thank you so much for sharing us, about your what you've done with your own practice, a little bit more about your book. Tell us about that. When is this next iteration coming out?
Well, edits. So when editing finishes, it's already written. And when editing finishes, we'll reproduce it and we'll put it in your show notes so everybody can get it. Basically, it's looking back after 10 years of deciding, like, this is my intention, like taking the knowledge and everything that I learned from that and putting it back in. And my Fortune colleagues, fellow coaches are part of that book, and they each bring their knowledge and impact into that in how to hire to inspire, setting the intentions from the beginning to growing people and having leaders in your practice that lead other leaders. And so I think it's pretty impactful. And I would say that that's how I live in a less stressful way because I have these great partners running my practice.
I love that, you guys. And we could all learn so much from that. And I know we all want that. So this episode was really about, becoming a leader of your company culture. And, Dr. Mangrum said it, leaders are not born, they are cultivated, they are developed, and everyone has to win, right? Culture supersedes strategy. Learning, I always say, if we're not learning, we're not growing. It's constant. It's never ending. It's radical transparency and it's honesty. And the whole excuse sometimes, I don't have time or my team doesn't have time. You guys, I'm asking you genuinely from my heart, we have to make time. We have to carve out the time. You heard it from Dr. Mangrum, like when you're able to do that. I mean, she's leading a life where she can go on vacation, spend time with her kids, spend time with her husband, be an executive coach while running a very successful, now not just Petaluma Dental Group, but your new medical spa, but feeling like you have these partners and these stakeholders there, right, that are working under your leadership. So I was honored to have you on this today. Thank you so much. I constantly learn from you too, and I love being able to work with so many brilliant people. I'm excited. You guys totally stay tuned. Not sure when our webinar is going to come out, but we're going to put all that in the show notes. You're not going to want to miss it because we're going to do a deeper dive with Dr. Mangrum and again, her husband, Tom Walsh, which are both executive coaches with Fortune. Let's really hone in on this leadership things, guys. I think that we can learn so much and go into 2022 right, with this different mentality and a higher level of success. So Dr. Mangrum, thank you again for being with us. Super honored to have you.
Thank you so much. And I'm always here to serve, always here to support. And anybody can reach out to me personally anytime. I'm happy to share and support you.
And how would anyone do that? How do we find you?
You can reach me at my email, Yolanda Mangrum at fortunemgmt.com, or my personal cell number, 707-478-6394. You can tell me you listened to the podcast and you had a question, and I'd be happy to support you.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I hope you don't get any stalkers from listening. But you guys, my tribe, my family, thank you. Thank you always. I would be so honored if you found this podcast valuable. Please share it, send it to a friend, leave a comment. This is how we continue to grow. This is how I, myself, and my team continue to strive to continue to build and have on guests and talk about things that are deeply meaningful for you. More importantly, that are going to have a significant impact on your practice. So with that being said, Dr. Dr. Mangrum, thank you again, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. For more information regarding Apex, the aesthetic game changer, visit apexplatform.com. That's apexplatform.com. We'll include links to everything in the episode notes, including links to all of the ways that you can follow Terri Ross Consulting on all social media platforms. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast from whichever platform you might be listening from. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of In Touch with Terri.